Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Hello, enlightened investors. Welcome back to Real Estate Investing Abundance. I'm your host, Dr. Alan. As always, it's a delight to be with you, and we're glad you're taking the time to be with us today. And we are going to take a look at how we can overnight double our cash flow with our rentals. And with us today is Dana Dunford, and she is a returning guest. She was with us about 3 years ago when we were publishing under our old label, Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, and we are delighted that she has come back to be with us today. Dana is the CEO and the co-founder of Hemlane, a new category creator in property management focused on providing an alternative way to manage our rentals and ensure our success. Dana, welcome back to the show, and just take us into the show. And how is it that most of us go about managing our rentals?
Yeah, great question, Alan. Thanks again for having me back on the show. Just to give listeners a little bit of background on management, it actually has not changed over the past 3 years since last time I spoke with many of you. If you recall, 72% of rental owners self-manage their properties. So most rental properties are self-managed, and also most rental properties are owned by small mom and pop owner operators. And so really the question there is, and you can use institutional investors, you can use syndicates, like many of you are part of, to understand what are better ways for people to manage their properties. Because when you look at the industry today, rental properties, that should be on silent. When you look at rental properties today, what you will see is that most of them are still using pen and paper to manage their properties. And there's a negative stigma associated with owning or operating rental properties. And so our goal is to say, how do you reduce that stigma? And I think looking at syndicates, looking at institutionals is a great way to say, how do you provide a much better experience and much more passive experience for those in their rental properties?
Well, that is surprising to me. I didn't remember that 75% of rental properties are self-managed. And I didn't realize that really the bulk of those are managed by mom and pops. And I'm astounded that people are still using pen and paper. That is amazing to me. Well, tell us, Dana, how can we break this mold and help people to get out of this pen and paper mode and also get out of this self-management mode?
Yeah, great question. I think it comes down to when you think of folks who are landlords, it is SMB, which is called, for those of you who don't know, that's small, medium-sized businesses. And when you look at small, medium-sized businesses, they always say they operate like consumers. And consumers have a very low willingness to pay for anything. And property management is one of them, right? So unless you have 500 units, or so you've gone through a syndication, it's part of 500 units, then it's a no-brainer to say, I need help. It's consolidating a lot more capital together. And it's saying, okay, because all this capital is together and consolidated, we actually need professional tools and systems in place, because now you're operating much more like a medium-sized business. But when you think of small mom and pops out there, so folks who own between, I say 1 to 20 rentals, but mass market, it owns between 1 to 4 rental properties. When you look at that, they actually almost operate like a consumer. So if you go to a consumer and say, hey, don't you want, this software solution to track maybe your own home maintenance? They say, no, I have zero willingness to pay. And so landlords across the nation actually have that same mentality of I have zero willingness to pay. And one thing you'll notice about landlords, it's the same as consumers out there with anything, that they don't value their time. Actually, the only people I see who value their time are lawyers. And I actually like that about lawyers, because lawyers have something called billable hours. And when you have billable hours, let's just say you're at a dinner, you're thinking in your head, shoot, I could have been making $1,000 right now for this hour that I spent at this dinner. And it can be semi-frustrating to some extent, but it's actually a good way to think about your time and how you spend your time. But most consumers don't do that. And there's quite a few good books out there to read about consumer and consumer behavior, which all of us are consumers. And let me give some examples of that. I'm a consumer, right? And I will spend, 5 extra minutes in a store to figure out like which shampoo might be like cheaper or the best bang for my buck, right? Or like I'll go online and I'll check for flights. I'll spend an extra 30 minutes trying to figure out, should I fly out of Oakland or San Francisco or San Jose to save an extra $50. But then on top of that, how much does it cost to I live in San Francisco, so it's much closer for me to get to SFO. But how much then would it cost in additional for me to get to San Jose? And this is like the irrational behavior of consumers. Because if you think of the irrational behavior of consumers, it's like, well, for that 30 minutes, how much is my time worth? Well, my time is probably worth, obviously over $500 an hour, over $1,000 an hour. It depends on what your profession is. But if you think of how much you make on an hour, it's probably more than, $100, $500 an hour, depending on who you are and what your occupation is. And so then when you think about that and you say, hey, I just spent 30 minutes on this task to try to save maybe $50, but it cost me $250 in my time, suddenly you start rethinking and reconsidering things. And if you thought like that, if you thought like a rational human being of how much is my time worth based on my alternative, which is making money and having a W-2 job and then investing it in real estate, syndicates, whatever it may be, then suddenly your perception and your mindset would change significantly. But that's not how consumers act. That is not how the small mom and pop acts. What they essentially do is they say, hey, I will spend extra time, an extra hour or two, manually checking my bank account to confirm every month that my tenant paid and they paid on time. They will spend extra time to do that rather than pay like $30 a month for software or something to help make their time more valuable. And so I think that as anyone listening to this, if you can remember that and think about how valuable your time is, you should be spending time on what I call a SME, being a subject matter expert. If you are the best physicist or the best doctor in your area or the best whatever it is, you should spend more time doubling down on that and making money there, and then automating all of these administrative manual tasks you have. But of course, that's not how consumers think. Consumers are irrational. And so it's really to try to get a lot of the solutions out there for landlords and a lot of the value. There's a different approach to take to it. A lot of that has to do with offering them things for free that hook them, that make them realize that this is a much better alternative for them to use software, to use services, to use virtual assistants. All of that to get set up. If you can get them through the roadblock of, hey, I have zero willingness to pay for this, suddenly on the other end, they'll see the future very bright. One of the kind of benefits, if you think something we didn't talk about, Alan, last time, but I think is really important to talk about now, is the shift as baby boomers retire and then pass down properties, because there's a new trend that 3 years ago was just starting, but now it's so prominent and so in your face. And if you're a millennial or a Gen Z or Gen X, whatever they call all of them, it's so prominent and it's so interesting to see their behavior. And that's what they call the convenience culture. And Alan, how much do you know about the convenience culture?
Well, I don't, I'm not sure. I'm still teaching university, so I
Okay.
work with them every day, but I don't know what kind of questions are you asking about them. I learn things from them every single day, and it blows my mind. But anyway,
Okay. Great. So I'll go into what the convenience culture is. So the convenience culture is something that it's where consumers now, and especially the younger generation, want things immediate and they want things done now. And the reason for that trend is not only technology, but technology that provides that service to you. And so let me give you some examples. Amazon, Instacart, DoorDash. I don't actually like proactively think about my shopping list any day, right? Like everything comes from Instacart. And it's so much in my face that I'm so much more willingness to pay for something for convenience. And that's what the convenience culture is, and that's not going away. Amazon was one of the biggest players to say you get something in 2 days. Historically, when I would have to shop for a birthday present for someone, I would have to think, a week in advance, maybe 2 weeks in advance because I need to have it shipped. Now then Amazon came along. I was like, I can think, 2 days in advance to get it before the birthday party. Now what's interesting is Instacart has allowed, because they have Sephora and like every single website on there, I only have to think 2 hours before I need to leave for that birthday party, because Instacart will get anything to my house within 2 hours. And so all I need to do is say, okay, my sister likes that perfume. I will order it the day of, have it arrive within 2 hours, wrap it, and I'm off to the party. And so why convenience culture is so prevalent and so prominent for real estate is I think there's a lot of opportunities. Folks want things now. Syndication is a perfect example. I just want to click a button, invest in real estate, and I want everything handled, and I want that convenience. But you can relate that also to the small mom and pop. The more that they realize that they're willing to pay for convenience and immediacy, the more that technology companies can think about that, the more that they can actually change people's willingness to pay. And I'll give you a personal example because I always think personal is like the best way to give these parallels. I went back and I just told you guys about me shopping in a store. And I would shop for shampoo and I would look at like what's the best bang for my buck based on what's on sale, this and that. I would spend like 5 minutes on it. Nowadays, I have everything delivered to my house through Instacart, Amazon, or DoorDash if I'm ordering like sushi into the house. So I order everything online, and it's even to the extreme that, let's just say, Alan, I forgot rosemary. So I forgot rosemary and I'm making dinner tonight. I'm like, shoot, I really need rosemary for this meal. Well, I could walk down the street a block away. I live in San Francisco, California. A block away is a grocery store. But what do I do instead? I actually go on Instacart and I order their fast. We'll get it to you within 30 minutes, and I'll just order rosemary. And if there's a $10 minimum, then I'm like, okay, fine, I'll get ice cream too with it. You know what I mean? Like I'll add that in. But it's so much of that convenience of, hey, I don't even want to hassle myself to walk down the block to get rosemary, that I will have everything done from my phone. I think that is the one trend that's changing things. And so I think as things get passed down in generations and the younger generations, so I'm 38 years old, I'm not the young generation, but the even younger generations are so used to this convenience culture that they'll just pay for that convenience, and they actually almost, it's like they don't even look at their credit card of how much they're spending. I think that's going to change things for landlording and investing in real estate. And as much as you can tap into that of saying, how do I make it where, whether I'm helping someone purchase properties or I'm helping them operate properties, and we're completely in the operations space, how do we make it where real time they can see what they want? They want an inspection, they press a button, and we can get an inspection done within the next 24 to 48 hours. They need a drive-by of their property, we can do that. As much as you can facilitate in doing that, that is really going to change the industry. And so that's something that we think about every day. And that pen and paper is slightly changing, Alan. And once you have people experience convenience like that, and you give them a free trial, a free service that they can just experience it, What's really interesting is they don't go back to the traditional way. Suddenly they're like, oh, I'm not going to go back to having to like check every month that the rent was paid on time and it was the right amount. But I think that other tech companies have helped started with that trend, starting with your primary residence and home of how do I get, furniture delivered right away, a fridge right away to my house, whatever it is. And then it always transpires to rental properties as well. And so that's kind of how I think technology plays a role into this trend of providing that convenience. And what's interesting about it, Alan, is all traditional tech softwares, including those for large syndicates, large, owner operators, they were all not built that way. They were all built as almost like tracking systems where you can like track things, but it's not actually physically doing the work or getting someone out there. And so there's going to be a whole wave of digital disruption that you're going to see in the real estate space in rentals that is going to be beneficial to the owners and beneficial to the tenants. Because just as the owners are going to want that instant, I need things done now, I need it all tracked, and I just need to know that there's this quality and consistency, you better believe your tenants, who a lot of them are going to be younger than the landlords, are going to be used to and accustomed to that. They're not going to want to say, hey, the handyman can't come out for 2 weeks. They're going to say, can he come out tomorrow? What's going on? And so I think that's an exciting point of where we are today with, you could call it digital disruption, but I think disruption is often like coined as a negative term. But I think from that perspective, there's just a lot going on in the technology space that's going to be very beneficial to owner operators out there and to real estate to make it easier to invest in and manage real estate in the future. And so anyway, I'll stop there and see what questions you have.
Enlightened investors, if you haven't done so already, be sure and click that like button and also click that share so others can take advantage of the content. And finally, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single one of our upcoming episodes. Well, we are talking today with Dana Dunford, and she is the founder and CEO of Hemlane, a property management company that is working to bring about a new paradigm in terms of property management. So, Dana, tell us about Hemlane in particular. You've told us a lot about trends and where this is all going, but tell us about Hemlane, how Hemlane operates and how it's different from other property management companies. And before you get into that, just briefly tell us how to get in contact with Hemlane.
Yeah, great question. So first, to get in contact with us, you can visit us at www.hemlane, HEMLANE.com, and just mention this show for 20% off. So just make sure to mention this show if you jump on. And as far as if you have personal questions for me about convenience culture, property management, anything like that, you can also reach out to me at Dana, DANA, at Hemlane, HEMLANE.com. And so a little bit about what we do, because we just spoke about the convenience culture. We spoke about, owners and operators wanting things immediately. There was a trend that we saw 5 years ago that it was, people are still self-managing. So the trends have not changed. Most people are self-managing, but there's every owner operator, whether you own one property or 10 properties, is like, oh, this is a nightmare. I got a call at 11 a.m. on Saturday. I was going to my kid's soccer game, and now I've got a plumbing request. But they're still not opting into the traditional model. And the question is why? Why aren't you just talking to a traditional property manager and passing it off? It has to do with, like, if you physically bought a real estate asset, you want some control and transparency. And so what some people say it's price. Oh, a property manager charges 10% of monthly rent. That's part of it. But I think a bigger part is like, hey, you want control over that investment. If you have purchased it, you want, instead of like the S&P 500, you put money in there and you have no way to help control the outcome of it. In a rental property, you do. You can say, hey, I'm going to remodel the kitchen. It's going to give me an extra $300 in monthly rent, whatever it is, you can make those decisions. And so what we found out was all these folks are managing their own rentals, most owner operators. Most of them are not happy with doing it. And also their tenants feel like it's not a great experience either. Tenants are like, I called my landlord. I can't believe it took them 2 days to get back to me. I haven't had a refrigerator. What do I do? And so for us, it was, how do we use the convenience culture? How do we use real time people want things now to provide them with an alternative to traditional management solution? And so it starts with software. Anything software can automate better than a human can do, we automate. And we try to automate everything, and we're not scared to do that because we're not a property manager. So for us, some property managers I've spoken to have said, hey, we don't want to automate that task because it takes it away from us, from our job and what we're doing. We are quite the opposite. We're like, as much as we can systematize and automate, we will. Simple examples are things like rent collection, automatic late fees, etc., things that others do. But then there's other things where we really streamline the process. When a tenant puts a repair request in, we are doing troubleshooting where 7% of requests are closed before it even reaches a human. So the tenants can troubleshoot and be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let me flip the switch on the breaker box. I had no idea I could do that. Let me replace the air filter. Great, you've given me a video to walk me through how to do this. And so we look towards technology to help solve things. And in that convenience culture, tenants want things immediate. Owners want things done immediately as well. So that's the first thing we do. Anything that technology can do better than humans, we have technology do. Now, there's a lot of things that technology can't do better than humans, and that is a really, really important thing to distinguish and understand. Because I've seen some property management companies take it way too far where they try to automate everything. It frustrates the owner, it frustrates the tenant. An example of that would be repair coordination. So if the technology cannot help solve that problem and a request is open, you still need a human to be involved. That human better be the best repair coordinator ever. They know how to troubleshoot everything in the home. They know how to dispatch. They know how to work with vendors. They know what prices are typical to charge. They know when a vendor is price gouging. That's where we get what I call subject matter experts involved. So they're subject matter expert virtual assistants, like we call them repair solutionists and leasing coordinators, etc. But they just focus on doing one thing really well, and they will do that for you. And so they will, with a tenant, we get from the tenant the troubleshooting. We let them know, hey, what time are you available for the service professional to come out, whether it's a plumber or a handyman or a general contractor. When are you available for the person to come out? Just so you know, you've given some times to us. If you are not there, you might be charged a no-show fee. So please make sure that you are there. We streamline it for the tenant, and then we have the repair coordinator get involved. And this repair coordinator is going to talk to the service professionals, let them know exactly what's going on because we've gotten photos, done the troubleshooting, we have the make and model if it's an appliance, all of that. We'll go through with the service professional to discuss it. And then after we do that, then we dispatch. And so we dispatch based on the tenant's schedule. Then the repair coordinator will be on call. So when the service professional's on site, they'll call, they'll talk about price. There are no surprises for owners. Owners have thresholds in the system. So we know whether or not with the owner to give them a call and ask them if for approval or not. They'll also get a text message. They want things done now. And the younger generation hates picking up phone calls for some reason. So we'll have a press 1 to approve, press 2 to talk to someone and all of that. But I think for us, it's really taking technology and humans and bringing them together for a much better experience and a tech-enabled services experience. So kind of at a high level, when you think about Hemlane, it's taking both software and service, combining them together on a platform. So as an owner, you have property management. You can get it nationwide, anywhere you are. You can have property management where we provide both the software and service in real time. You can see everything in the platform, but you don't have to do the day-to-day work. That is all just streamlined and happening for you. And then another thing that I would say with that transparency is everyone is good at certain things. There's some people who are accountants and say, I can do the financials myself. There are other people who say, you know what, I'm a general contractor myself. I can go out and do the repairs. And so we allow in the system for you to pick and choose what you want to do and then pick and choose what we do. And that basically unbundles property management. So you don't have to choose between do it yourself And full service management, it's everything in between. And so that's a lot about how we think about innovation, how we think about the future of real estate is providing an alternative model to management and really helping with providing that convenience while also providing trust at the same time.
So, if I understand you correctly, what you really are providing is a menu of services that allows the landowner to actually be the person in control of their property, so they are not working with a traditional property manager who is supposedly the one who is supposed to be really in control of the property. But in your case, the owner still remains in control of their property, and then they can select from a menu of services that they want you to provide, from the accounting, bookkeeping, to the coordination of repairs, and really essentially anything else in between that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly, that's correct. So everything from leasing, finding, and placing a tenant to the day-to-day operations.
And you do this nationwide, correct?
Yes, we do it nationwide, and there's certain areas, like let's just say you're in a really small town with a population of 4,000. We may not have a repair coordination network. So we might say, hey, we don't have a plumber and electrician. We'll let you know as you go through the process. Kind of rule of thumb is if it's in a city or MSA of 100,000 or greater, we can service you. If not, we say, great, we can do all the coordination, but you're going to have to provide your own service professionals. You're going to have to provide, the inspector. So we'll do a bit of that just to give folks some sort of understanding of like how big our network is, to make sure that there is that quality and trust as you work with us. Very similar to, I think, if you look at Instacart or DoorDash, like there's certain areas that they don't work in because it's too small. And so we bring something very similar to the real estate industry.
So if the property is in a small community of 4,000 or less, you're not going to have the repair coordination, but you basically are going to have all of those other technology-related services. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So you can, in the software, you can use anywhere. So if you say, hey, I just want rent collection, I want to advertise my rental property, I want to do background and credit checks, that's obviously nationwide. It's just when we get humans on the ground involved, that would be for, MSAs, typically over 100,000, but there's some areas below that we definitely service.
So if you're in one of those below areas that you typically service, they're going to have to provide their own technicians. Can they then, once they have these technicians on board, and can they give you the contact information and you
Yes.
coordinate from there?
Yep. And we have that all in the system. So you would fill out your instructions, and then you'd go so far as to say, like, here's the first electrician I want you to call out. And if they're not available, here's the second. And you can put everything in there into the system for us. And then we can do the administration. I don't like to call the folks that we have at Hemlane virtual assistants, in part because they're much more subject matter experts. So like someone who does repair coordination, they're not a virtual assistant. They've done repairs time and time again. They know everything about houses and troubleshooting and what would be a liability for tenants to do and what could you have a tenant troubleshoot. And so it's like a higher level of a virtual assistant if you think about it, but yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, that is quite fascinating. That is quite a buffet of services to offer to landlords. And if it is my understanding here that if they contact you, not only if they mention real estate investing abundance, they get a 20% off, but they get a free trial. Is that correct?
That's correct. So you get 14 days to try us for free. You can do everything from advertising your rental, background and credit checks, putting in repair requests. You can do it all to just see the quality and stuff like that we have. We always believe that trust is built over time. And so as much as we can give you to understand and realize that is helpful for customers and landlords across the nation.
So if they were just to drop into hemlane.com and just peruse your website, what all are they going to find?
Yeah, great question. So they'll find everything. I can start with the whole rental life cycle. So the first thing they're going to find is we'll advertise their property to over 30 rental listing websites. Click a button, it shoots out to all the listing websites. Then a lot of landlords say it's like crack, it's addictive because then you just get all these tenant leads that come in. So you might have one tenant come in from Zillow, you might have another come in from apartments.com, but it's all in our system. And then every time you message the tenant, like, hey, tenant, I'd like to set up a showing this weekend, all of that goes to the tenant via text and email. The reason we do text message as well is tenants a lot of times don't check their emails. And so text is kind of the new way to do it. You also can schedule showings. So you can say, hey, these are the times I'm showing the property. Send the tenant an automatic email for them to go ahead and get that scheduled. So that's the first part. Then after that, we do a comprehensive application. We follow fair housing on it. We work with the realtor associations to make sure their legal teams that every T is crossed and I is dotted. We don't want you to have to do that. So we do that, and then the background checks, which include the background check, credit, and then income and verification. And then we will provide a recommendation to decline or accept the tenant based on your personalized property. Every property's criteria will be different. So based on that, and then what the results show. Then after that, we can help prepare the lease for you. Well, it's a standard state-specific lease document that you can use. We will notify you if you need a county-specific lease. So there are certain regions where you would need a county-specific lease. We would not recommend a state-specific one. Then after that, we'll collect the move-in funds. We never hold the funds. It goes directly to you. So it would be all online. Security deposit, first month's rent, and then from there, the recurring rent gets set up. We do automatic late fees. So based on your lease agreement, whatever date the late fees start, we would put that into the system. We want every tenant to pay on time. But we also have something called eGuard. eGuard is an eviction guard package where if your tenant is late on rent, we will go ahead and have a mediator call them. The mediator's goal is to get them to pay rent. We do not want you to have to go to court. Court is very costly. So our goal is to understand the situation and be able to service that accordingly. This is the next step of the process. Then after that, anytime a maintenance and repair request is put in, a tenant can do it online. Or they can also call our 24/7 number if you have a repair coordination package. If you decide you want to do all the maintenance and repair yourself, you can. There's all the tracking, scheduling, all of that in the system. Then after the maintenance and repair, the other things that we do is all the tenant communications. We have lease renewals, all that kind of fun stuff in there as well. And then we also have some just really cool technology at work for you. We do self-guided tours where we're verifying tenants based on their identity, very similar to Airbnb where you hold your driver's license up and we scan your face. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff as well for our users just to make sure that they have a great experience and their tenants do as well. And so always trying to bring things to the next level for our users out there. Oh, and then Alan, one important thing that we've just recently launched is our accounting suite. So you can sync your bank account, all your transactions go in, you can code things to, okay, this was travel and entertainment, this fee was for mortgage, and you can put that all in there so you can see how your financials are performing.
Well, a fantastic suite of services, fantastic interview today. Thank you so much, Dana, for being with us. Enlightened investors, I know you've gotten a whole lot out of this, and what a fantastic opportunity that Hemlane is offering to landlords. Enlightened investors, thank you so much for being with us again today. I look forward to being with you in our next episode. Until then, live abundantly in all areas of life. Enlightened investors, wait, don't go just yet. I just want to remind you about our recently launched webinar that you will not want to miss. If you're at all curious and would like to learn more about how real estate investing can diversify your investment portfolio, alleviate the anxiety associated with Wall Street swings, leverage your 401ks and IRAs to substantially increase the return on your investment, and do all of this with turnkey, hands-off passive real estate investments, then you'll want to immediately go to stevetalker.com/webinar. In the webinar, we'll also address the common dubious investment schemes that you want to avoid. To access the webinar, go to stevetalker.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you in the webinar.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.